Alright, today's video is going to be a bit short, but I have a few images on this Lexar card that I took with the Canon 5D Mark III with the 24 to 105 f4. Mainly the settings that I used were kept consistent from anywhere from f4 to about f6 something. My ISO range for outdoors was about 50 to 100 and indoors was to 640. My shutter speed was about that or even lower. That was just the max shutter speed I shot at, and these two depended on each other, and the ISO could just be chosen. AI servo, high speed continuous, standard picture profile, auto white balance, everything's off, and I shoot in JPEG, not RAW, because I find that I never need to edit my images, and all the images coming off the camera are straight up from the camera. If we check out our AF system, I mainly use Spot AF, so let's take a look at the images shot on the 5D Mark III. Look at some photos that I shot on my Canon 5D Mark III. So mainly the settings I used was I shot at anywhere from between f4 and to f5.6 at about 1/250th of a second for outdoors, and that varied from indoors and outdoors, and I shot it with the 24 to 105 f4. So this is what you'll get with the kit lens, and then the body itself. I didn't do anything to these images, these are straight up out of the camera. Our first image was shot at f4 and 1/250th of a second at ISO 50 at 105 millimeters. So if we zoom in into the image, you can see the lemons are pretty clear and there's a lot of detail, and I think the bokeh is actually pretty good for this much of a crowded subject. I would not do any tweaking to this image, even though I'd probably crop it up a little bit and change maybe the brightness of it. Moving on to the second image is another lemon. We shot it at ISO 50, but at f5.6, and of course at 1/250th of a second, and f4 at f5.6 and 105 millimeters. So if we zoom in, actually, around the subject, this is mainly I'm showing you with my mouse, mainly in the center region of the main lemon you see right now is where it's focusing. You can also see it's focusing over here to the side a little bit, but overall I think it's a really crisp image, and if I was to take this image with the Sony a7 Mark II, it would compare generally pretty similar if I had these same exact settings. This is an orange. From the looks of it, we're gonna zoom out to about 50%. You can see a little water droplets over here. The camera's 22 megapixels, so it's not going to be the highest quality image, but it's good that the orange has a lot of details and you can see the texture of the orange. The background's pretty blurred out a lot and mainly focusing only in the center region and a few leaves. It did a great job at focusing with the 61 autofocus point system, and I was able to track the subject pretty quickly. This is a picture I took of a spider web in my backyard of a tree. If we actually look, I like this image because you can see a lot of detail over here in the tree branch, and it's done a great job of just focusing on the spider web and blurring the background. Keep in mind it was also foggy this day I shot the images, but really crisp, really clean. I like this image. Normally in the image I would not crop this, as I will lose my megapixel count. You probably saw the settings on this one. It kind of varied a little bit between the last three images, but I shot this at 102 millimeters at ISO 50 and at f4, and of course 1/250th of a second. Taking a look at this next image, I shot at f4 at 105 millimeters to try the macro. I don't think it turned out amazing because this flower is really not in focus. But if I zoom out all the way, it just looks pretty much in focus. And to my eyes, it looks like this part's the part in focus, but it's not. You can see the detail, and in this image, you can't really tell a lot of chromatic aberration, what I see. But it's pretty good camera. So this one has a lot of stuff filling the frame, and I just kept it 1.AF. If I do show the AF pattern grid, it's right here, and so mainly in the center region is where it focused. You can see all 61 AF points, or just the one focus point, which is pretty neat in my opinion. This was a little bit more of a darker setting, so my ISO had to go up about one more stop at 105 millimeters and at f4 again. You can really actually see the wood grain texture, in my opinion. And if I show the AF points, it's just focusing right there. You can see a lot of the wood grain still, and probably would be a very usable image if a little bit cropped in. So we're moving to more of a darker area. It's still kept the same at 105 millimeters, f4, and ISO 100, and the shutter speed's the same. You can really, this is probably the greatest images I've seen so far coming out of my backyard. You can actually really see the water droplets, and if you just zoom here, it looks perfectly usable. And the background was blurred out a lot and just focusing on the main subject. I skipped an image because it's basically the same exact image, but with a higher bit of ISO. I prefer the darker images. This was shot at f4, 105, 1/250th, and ISO 125. It's focusing on this main beam, and just shows kind of like a depth-ish perspective. But really, from this angle, it looks really freaking sharp. What would probably be a great image is this beam right here. But you see, it doesn't really struggle with the bending. Here is another image at 1/60th, ISO 50, and 105. So that's all.